Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Chet Hardin. Last name is spelled Hardin. He just published a book. I saw him on Roberta Glass's True Crime Report, and I was like, "Oh, this looks perfect for my show." Like I've done a lot of true crime shows. He just published this on August 4th, so it's just 2 weeks published, at least on Amazon.
Mhm.
So like I said, it was on. I saw it on. Saw him on Roberta Glass's True Crime. If you're watching this on my channels, you'll see the full title of the book is "The Vampire's Cult: The Untold Story of Obsession, Control, and a Shocking Small Town Murder." And I got about halfway through, really fascinating. I remember hearing the story. It might jog your memory if you're listening to this of it being in the news, but it's a really incredible tale, and there's a lot to talk about. But this is not Chet's first book. He also co-authored with Tony Natalie a 2019 memoir titled "The Program: Inside the Mind of Keith Raniere and the Rise and Fall of NXIVM." I actually covered a lot of that stuff with Roberta Glass as well, and had a few guys who were in the orbit of Keith Raniere on my show. But it's been so long, I can't even believe it's been 7 years. But you can see Chet Hardin. I'll put a link to his website. It's the best place to take a look. In his bio starts off with him being a journalist who specializes in reporting on bad ideas and worse people. And he's also worked in the newspaper industry, writing for alt weeklies in Colorado and New York, and has worked in construction, politics, coffee, and technology. And he lives kind of in the center of the country, like where I'm from. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska. So I used to drive around a lot of those places. That's covered in this book, right in the center of the Midwest. But Chet can talk more about that. So Chet, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, you're from right from the epicenter of this story.
Yeah, I used to go to Lincoln, Big Red, Cornhusker. I am a Cornhusker. I'm literally a Cornhusker. I was born there in 1968. So I go back, all my relatives are from there.
Yeah, cool.
My dad tells stories about, going down to the beef butcher and literally cutting the beef off with a hacksaw. And very Midwest kind of memories. Farms, corn, literal like bale hailing and or hay baling and all kinds of stuff like that. But
Yeah.
there is an underbelly there. There is the Franklin scandals from Omaha. There's like George Manson was in Boys Town in Omaha, and so there is a kind of unfortunately, I think it's just the human condition. And this story is one of them. You're kind of close to that too, but maybe for people who haven't heard your name or didn't hear you on Roberta Glass, maybe you can do a brief bio and kind of talk about Raniere, and then let up. I know you did a lot of great research. It's included in your book. Like you talked to a lot of first-person people when writing The Vampire's Cult. Maybe you can talk about the research leading up to the publication of the book.
Yeah, sure. So my experience as a journalist goes back to 2005 when I started working on the copy desk of the Saratogian daily newspaper up in Saratoga Springs, New York. About a year after that, I got hired as the news editor of the Alt Weekly in Albany, New York. And this was 2006. And it was about this. It was like the second cover story I'd done for this Alt Weekly was NXIVM. And I got it from a cold call. This guy, Joe O'Hara, he was a lawyer, a fixer for NXIVM at one point. And he was out and he wanted to try to expose them. So he gave me a call and I went over there and I started working with him, and he introduced me to Tony Natalie, who is I've known Tony now since 2006. I talk to her all the time. We text all the time still to this day. So yeah, that's how I got introduced to NXIVM and Keith Raniere. That's how I met Keith. I played midnight volleyball with Keith.
Oh wow! So you really knew him well.
Yeah. He was threatening to sue the newspaper I worked for tens of millions of dollars because I was writing about their plans to bring the Dalai Lama to town, and he didn't like that. So instead of suing me, he said, well, come play volleyball with me and maybe I won't sue you, basically. And so I went and played volleyball with him, and it was a weird night. From midnight to I think I stayed till about 3 a.m. But Claire Bronfman, one of the Seagram heiresses, was there. It was strange. It was a peculiar night. And then I met his second in command, Nancy Saltzman. We met for coffee. I think she tried to hypnotize me. I don't know. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Maybe I made that up in my mind as I was talking to her. But
they can try to induce that stuff. If she tried to talk to you really calmly and like try to get you to like stay calm or take deep breaths, she was probably trying to do something like that.
Yeah, well, she's as far as I know, she's very good at NLP, neuro linguistic
Yeah,
programming.
there you go. Yeah.
So, but so I met her, I met Keith, and then I stayed a journalist for a while, moved to Colorado, and then in 2019 I worked on that book with Tony, and that gets us kind of caught up to the Vampires Cult. And like you, my wife is from Nebraska. She's from a little town out a little farther down the interstate. And her mother sent her an article about Aubrey Trail cutting his throat in trial during his trial. And my wife forwards me this article, and she's like, this sounds like your type of guy. And so I read the article. I was really fascinated by Aubrey instantly. And the story was really compelling. It has, tales of witches and ritual bloodlettings and midnight sacrifices and, all this sort of ridiculous stuff that you wouldn't expect to happen in a town like Wilbur, Nebraska, population 2,000, one Casey's, one Dollar General. But it happened there. So I went to, I couldn't go to Aubrey's trial because I was at Ranieri's trial, but I went to Bailey Boswell's trial, which happened the next year. And that's how I sort of got into the story.
Yeah. And it's kind of like we were talking in the pre-show. It's kind of like a modern story where these people are communicating through social media and phones and Tinder. And he's kind of an interesting character on his own. He's really the center of the whole story, right? Is this guy, Aubrey Trail, who you mentioned in the pre-show is a lifelong criminal, right?
Yes, yeah. Aubrey is he was born in Manchester, Tennessee. He was born to like a teen mother, and she couldn't handle him. She had he was the second child that she'd had, and she just couldn't handle it. So she kind of dropped her kids off with her in-laws and left him. And everyone in this story in Aubrey's life was very poor, like very, very poor. So but the in-laws did what they could to take care of him. And then his mom comes back after about 5 years and wants to reclaim him. So she takes him back. But by this point, the bridge has been burned for Aubrey. And he's been set on this path. I mean, he's just a little kid, but he's already set on this path of like, truancy and running away from the home and, stealing. And he just never recalibrates. He just stays this juvenile delinquent his entire life. When he's 17, he robs a motel with a pellet gun or a BB gun or something like that, a fake gun. It gets like $514 and 10 years in prison for it. So he does 10 years in a Tennessee state prison from age like 17 to 28, around there. Comes of age in prison. His stories about that are wild. I didn't put a lot of the stories that he told me in the book because a lot of the stories, I don't know if they're true or not, right? Like I put as much in there as I felt comfortable with. Aubrey, the thing about Aubrey is he's also a compulsive liar. If he tells you you're on fire, you want to check first before dousing yourself with water because you're just going to be wet. You're not putting out a fire, probably, right? He's just every word of his mouth. You just have to assume is a lie. So yeah, he becomes a con man and he travels the country after he gets out of prison in Tennessee, winds up in the Midwest, tries to stay out of the South because those 3 strikes are outlaws is what he told me. Stays in the Midwest and pulls petty crimes the rest of his life. It's petty crime after petty crime, stealing, passing a $500 bad check, stealing antiques, just running small cons. He's in and out of prisons and jails the rest of his adult life until he meets up with Bailey Boswell.
Right. So he's an experienced criminal by the time. How old was he when he met up with Bailey? This is fairly recent too. Like this is 2018, 2017.
2017. Right? Yeah, they met in 2016. He was 49. Bailey was in her early 20s. She was working, if you can call it that. Who knows how exactly this all happened, but she wound up on Backpage in selling sexual favors, like massages, to men all over, like the I-29 corridor, Kansas City, St. Joe, all around in that area. And that's how she met Aubrey. He hired her off of Backpage. She comes in, he sees something in her that he likes. It's this ineffable it factor. He couldn't say exactly what it was. And that's how they hit it off. I see one of your commenters says his father must have been delinquent. Yeah, Aubrey's father ran off after he was born, leaving this 16-year-old girl to take care of these two children, and she has no money. So yeah, it was a sad story.
Yeah. Kind of like it's a Manson story or something like that,
very similar. Yeah, very similar. Bouncing in and out of juvie, all of this stuff. Real
check kiting, petty theft, not like no known super big, crimes, but he was a good. I mean, he had fake names too. So like, what does he call himself? Gambino or
So Aubrey called himself Alan Gambino. That was the name he was using when he met Bailey in that motel room in St. Joe. He called himself Alan Gambino. And he told her that he was a button man for the Gotti family, right? Which is hilarious because if you ever talk to Aubrey, he has the thickest, he has this thick Tennessee drawl, which has kind of been kind of muddied by his time in the Midwest, but he's still got this thick Tennessee drawl, right? So it's like I don't know how many button men for the Gotti family are getting hired out of Tennessee. And I don't know many at Alan Gambino's with that accent,
but he seemed to play it off like he was a skilled check kiter, and they're traveling around too, kind of like Bonnie and Clyde, hiding checks and stealing stuff from antiques. How did he ever get into antiquing, and that was his kind of thing? It seems kind of unusual for me. Like usually, criminals robbing banks or something.
Well, Aubrey is an impressively lazy person. So he was always looking for the sort of easiest targets, right? And so, you go into a mom and pop shop, in, Crete, Nebraska, and you walk in and they're just they aren't as on defense as some people would be. They're gonna just kind of take you for what you are. And he comes in and he puts on this act as though he's an antique dealer. He knows antiques really well. I mean, he really does. You can ask him anything about antiques and he just has an encyclopedic knowledge of them. So, you walk into these mom and pop shops, you're presenting yourself as an antique dealer. You look like any other antique dealer in the Midwest, and they let their guard down. And then he just pockets everything he can and walks out.
Yeah, and some of those are big numbers, like $25,000 here, something there. So he did have money on his person. He really did have the kind of accoutrement of some kind of wealth. At least that impressed these young girls he was interested in, right?
Yeah, he had tens of thousands of dollars to throw around. I mean, at one point he had his hooks into an antique dealer. And he was milking the guy for everything he was worth. I think he got $400,000 out of this guy on a con. So yeah, I mean, I make fun of him saying he's lazy because he is lazy, but he's also extremely good. He's extremely good at conning people. And I mean, as much as that is a skill, right? Having that sort of disregard for another person, he has that, and he's very good at it.
Yeah, because a sociopath, that's the way he just existed. That was his nature.
Yep.
He's a big guy too, right? I mean, you've seen him in person.
Yeah. Yeah, he's he's over 6 foot, and he's he's always orbiting 300 pounds, right? So yeah, he's a big guy. He's an intimidating guy. Yeah.
And but he always had this, like, I mean, according like the intro to your book or the first chapters, it's like he's always around women or hustling
Mhm.
women. There's other women in his orbit, not just Bailey.
Mhm.
And he's bringing them in and trying to impress him with money. It's almost like, I felt like it was almost like an Epstein thing, like
Mhm.
trafficking and bring him in and then controlling, dangling money around, and then sex and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I only have this little brief window of knowledge about Aubrey Trail, right? Because um, from the time he met up with Bailey to the aftermath of the murder of Sidney Loof, a lot of that is documented in like FBI interrogations, FBI investigation, police investigation, interviews with plenty of witnesses, right? So that's a brief window of Aubrey Trail's life. So I don't, I think that he was doing this type of stuff with these young women um, for much longer than I can prove, right? And because the thing about Aubrey is that he was always on the road. When he wasn't, the only way you can really know where Aubrey was at any given time, as far as I can tell at least, is by prison records, right? Arrests, all that stuff. He's always on the road. When he's not in prison, he's not at home, he's not with his wives. He was married twice. He's never he's always on the road, driving from like Texas up to South Dakota, out east, or out to Las Vegas. I mean, he's just everywhere. So it's very hard to keep track of what this guy was up to and when.
Right, and who he was seeing in every different town. If he's using
Exactly.
Backpage, like, it only starts when he's in his late 40s. So where's this 20 years? What's he up to? What's he doing? He kind of had a home base in Nebraska, though, like at the very southeastern part
At
of
the end,
Nebraska, right? Yeah.
in Wilbur, Nebraska. Well, and also in Fall City. Yeah, he had these sort of like home bases, but he was more comfortable in like a Holiday Inn than at these homes, and so yeah.
But he was always kind of talking about witches and that he was part of a coven and he was the head of it. And it reminded me of like the vampire crew. I think they were from the Midwest too. Forgot the kid's name. He ended up there, but it's like, this is
Mhm.
what we do. I'm in communication with a coven, and he
Mhm.
kind of created this kind of, I think there's a game called Masquerade that's like
Mhm.
a vampire game. Like, that's what he was kind of doing with the
Mhm.
women too, right?
Oh yeah, and the funny thing about this vampire stuff, this cult stuff, and these witches, and all of this stuff is that I wasn't able to find anyone who talked about Aubrey being into this stuff prior to Bailey. Um, it's this. I part of me wonders like if this was a fascination of his for a long time, and I just wasn't able to track down people who could verify it, or if this was the con he chose specifically for Bailey. And it could be just that, because she seemed immediately susceptible to it. I mean, she like was hook, line, and sinker, believed in the fact that he had this coven of witches around him, the fact that like he could project himself into the astral plane, that he could hear thoughts, and like that he was that she could heal him by touching him. I mean, she started believing all of this insane stuff very quickly. And the thing about a con man is, as I'm not telling anybody here something they don't already know, but like they run the con that will work, right? So he's not going to run a con on a person that doesn't work, because that's not a con. That's just some idiot talking about some stupid stuff you don't care about. He's running a con on her, and it's working. And so he runs it really on her, just like this other person that he milked $400,000 on. He found the perfect con for that guy, and he ran it on him. Uh, so I don't know where the vampire stuff comes from, or the witches stuff comes from. There is a story in the book that you didn't that you didn't get to, and I don't really want to spoil it, but there is an indication from his childhood that he's always been into this type of stuff, that he's always been a little
he was just interested in the darker side or the occult or something.
Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, some of this stuff is pretty interesting. He's being possessed by other entities.
Yes.
And they're like trying to wake him up or something.
Yeah.
Like some of that's I've done, unfortunately, a lot of reading into the stuff. It's somewhat consistent, but he didn't have the books. Like usually they've got some kind of book or something that they're reading or some kind of connection. I didn't see that in your book. I may have overlooked it, but
no, he didn't. No.
Like they tend to join the OTO or just something, but it didn't seem to have that. But maybe he did. Was he a reader at all?
He's a voracious reader. Reader. He reads constantly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he's a voracious. I mean, his main problem with being in prison is that he goes through every book in the library, basically. Like he's a voracious reader. And the thing about the witches is I wouldn't put it past Aubrey to have met someone who was into this. And he's such a sponge. I mean, again, like any good con man, he's a very good listener, and he's actually a really quick study. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had met someone who taught him about these things, and he really ran with it.
Some of these guys who were coming, just like Manson, jail for them is like a training ground.
Yes.
So they're learning from other people's grifts. And like, I forgot, the creepy Hardin was a guy that Manson knew who was like a 50s con man. So maybe this guy, Aubrey Trail, he might have done the same thing. It just might not be known. Cause like you said, there's like things, sometimes they don't divulge it, or I don't know, but like it's, they have to get it somewhere, whether he's reading, Vampire, Diary of a Vampire, whatever that book is or something. But like the vampire cult I've done research on that ended up getting arrested in Louisiana, they had this game, this Vampire Masquerade game, and also these other things. So they were drawing from something, and then they got into blood drinking and like really dark stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing about Aubrey and his fantasies, they really were about sexual sadism. That was where he really that's where he gravitated, and that's where he kind of pushed the women in his orbit, was toward fantasizing about murder and torture and BDSM, but not consensual, really. It was very driven by Aubrey's desires and his sort of preoccupation with things like torture and murder.
Right. So there's always this hint of threats and killing people, and we can solve this. It seemed like that was it. But also this kind of using the women as intermediaries, much like Raniere, or even Epstein, where like the girls are going out to do the hunting for other people. Like it's something happens where they figure this out, that they should get not even themselves, but then the girls, and then create a mystique about themselves. That's what Epstein did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Raniere did.
And Raniere, right? Raniere and Manson, 220 IQ, Manson too, right? Yeah. So they figure something out about these women, and then they become beholden to them, and then the control, right? So then it's just massive control, much like Epstein. Like you talk about in the book, like you're naked all the time. You call me daddy or whatever. It's like,
yep. Yeah, Bailey had to ask for permission to get a drink of water. Bailey has a daughter. She had to ask permission before she could call her daughter. She had to ask permission before she used the bathroom.
These are classic cult techniques. Yeah.
Ross. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a cult. I'm more concerned. I was more interested in the tactics of cult behavior and less about the externality of it. I mean, they're not wearing sashes. They're not but it's not a large group of people. But internally, the tactics I saw were, very much that sort of cult and then cult member dynamic.
Like in your book, there's like 4 women, I think, that came into his orbit that I saw. How many people do you think that he was just filtering through? Do you think he was just filtering through women, knowing they'd leave in 3 to 6 months or something?
Yeah, I think him and Bailey. I think he and Bailey. They were definitely filtering through women. I mean, I know for a fact of a few who they tried to get in and didn't work. I write about one of them in the book.
The Russian girl, is that the one?
Well, the Russian girl, she Anastasia, she was pulled in for a little while, but she got out. But she actually helped another girl sort of stay away, and she sort of reached out and kind of like protected another young woman from getting involved. And there were a few others, and I didn't include a couple of them in the book because it was for reasons. But
he also was into massages, very Epstein, like the massage thing. He needs his massage for 2 hours a day or whatever.
His skin hurts. That's why his skin hurts. So he needs massages because his skin hurts.
That was what his. Did he have any diseases that you know of?
Every disease you can think of.
Okay, so he was like a hypochondriac or something.
Yeah. Every time I talk to him, he's got like 280 over 110 blood pressure, or he's got stomach cancer, or he's just always like something.
And that was his line. That's part of the con too, right? Like, I'm going to be dead in 6 months, or telling people that, right?
Yeah, he told Bailey that. He told Anastasia that. Yeah, he's going to leave them everything. Yeah. That's part of the con too. And of course, Bailey's motivated by money at this point, like in her life. So she's, she's blinded by money at this point in her life. So yeah, she's thinking.
All young women like that are. That's very important for securities to have money or an income or something like that. So I think he probably keyed into that, much like Epstein or Raniere too, actually, for that matter. One of the strange things is like how this story kind of came out about the death of Sidney Loof. Like, there's real it was a real nation. It was really a nationwide story too when that broke. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was so shocking, her disappearance, and then it was found out pretty quickly that she was catfished on Tinder, which sort of elevated the profile of the story because she goes missing. Nobody knows. Nobody's heard from her after the second Tinder date she goes on, and very quickly they figure out that something's awry, and the police want to talk to Aubrey and Bailey, and then Aubrey and Bailey go on this like 2 week long on the run, 2 week long run from the police that ends in Branson, Missouri. But while they're on the run, they post a couple of Facebook videos where they proclaim their innocence. And it's actually how they get caught, was these Facebook videos. But so it was very dramatic. It was, it's very easy to sympathize with Sidney Loof. She was, such a lovely person and had no, just completely like blindsided by this. She
didn't see it coming at all. Not suspicious. That's the other thing is I think she's a lesbian, right? So her and Bailey are doing that. So she doesn't even think that there's a masculine hand behind everything.
She has no idea until she walks into the apartment that night that Aubrey Trail exists.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is a real cautionary tale, guys. Men and women, because it's happened to me. And I covered the story of Kevin Bacon in Michigan. I mean, so these are like modern tales off of the internet or Tinder, Grindr, these things. It happens to gay dudes too, but this is just a terrible case. Like, she had her whole life ahead of her.
Girl. Yeah, no, she was, she's very easy to relate to. I mean, she was just looking for companionship, and she was just kind of lonely, and she just reached out, and Aubrey was the one probably who was texting her through Tinder. They used Bailey's face, but I think Aubrey was the one who texted her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he sounded the texts to me, and I can't confirm this, but the texts that the messages he was sending to her on Tinder sound to me like one of the witches that that he would get possessed by. So
do you think that there's a potential for authenticity, that he was being presenced or possessed by entities? Do you think that that's valid, or was it all an act for him? Do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know with Aubrey. I really don't. Because I don't know how sane he is, right? I don't know. Like, he's one of those guys that comes across and reads as sane, but the longer you talk to him, the more you start to doubt, like, if he really has a grasp on reality. So I don't know. I don't know if he really was possessed, if he thought he was possessed. But he did tell me one time that, he was starting to, he was getting off on his own power over these young women, to the point where he said he was starting to believe his own bullshit. I don't know what that means, but yeah.
But one of the interesting things is, like, this is another social media data point, is that they actually went on Facebook. I do vaguely remember that happening. I remember seeing that, like, oh yeah, we're not guilty or whatever, and then they got arrested. What led up to their arrest?
Okay, yeah. So this YouTube video that they posted, which you can find on my website, or this Facebook video that they posted, you can find it on my website. They decided that they wanted to sort of proclaim their innocence to the police. They're on the run. They've been driving all over Nebraska. They were driving all over Iowa. They decided to go down to Missouri to hide out for the winter in the national forest. And while they're on the road, they make this video, and it's just Aubrey and Bailey looking as creepy and as guilty as possible in a car, and they're just attacking the police and the media and all the people on Facebook, and the FBI, who did an amazing job on this case. I can't say enough good stuff about the police on this one. They use these videos to track. They got the IP addresses from the upload of the videos, got the IP addresses from the phone, from a phone call the phone made, and was able to triangulate it pretty quickly, and they got them within a day of them starting to post these Facebook videos. But they got put on the trail of Aubrey and Bailey. Interestingly, one of Sydney's best friends, this young woman named Brooklyn McChrystal, she knew that Sydney had gone out on a Tinder date and decided that she was going to set up a Tinder profile and catfish the catfisher, and it worked. And that's actually how the investigation even really began, was with this young woman, this Sydney's best friend, sort of doing some sleuthing. And so, but it was great police work all the way through. It really was. Everybody worked well together, and the Lincoln Police, the FBI, yeah, they did a great job. I pull quite a few transcripts directly from some of the interrogations that these police officers did, and when you read it, you'll see. I mean, these guys were pros. They were so good. So
it's great. It's great to hear. They could use some praise, I guess, these days. So the trials, and she's tried, and they're tried separately, right? So
yeah.
Can you talk about the whole process of the criminal?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So Aubrey and Bailey had been running this con on this guy, and they got $400,000 of him. And this is, aside from this other, from Sydney. But so the feds come in and charge them with this fraud that they've been running on this guy. And once they charge them with this fraud, then the state doesn't have to charge them in Sydney's murder for a long time. I mean, they sit on because now they're in jail, right? So they just kind of sit on them for like 6 months until they can build the best possible case against them.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really
What's
great.
the date of their arrest? Do you know offhand?
No, I don't know.
It was 2017 or 2018, right?
27. Well, their arrest might have been 2018 because it was in 2017, 2018. It was around the end of 2017, maybe
Gotcha.
2018, because it was about 3 weeks after the murder, or 2 weeks after the murder. So probably 2017 still. And so the cops sit on him for about 6 months in jail and just keep building the case, driving Aubrey crazy. This is driving Aubrey crazy. He calls the police, or he calls the nightly news and confesses to the murder because he just feels like he's losing control of everything. He starts telling the feds that he's committed all these murders all over the country, and he'll give them leads on all these murders if they don't charge Bailey with murder. Because all throughout this entire time, he's saying Bailey's innocent. Bailey's innocent. That's what he says when he cuts his throat in court. He says Bailey's innocent, and I curse you all. Right. So he's maintaining Bailey's innocence all the way through this. He's trying to like give them more bodies if they'll like not charge Bailey with murder. He's just losing his mind in prison. And Bailey is in the 6 months in jail, and Bailey has literally lost her mind. She's seeing apparitions on the walls. She thinks that Aubrey and the witches are watching her. I mean, she has completely lost her mind at this point.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Do you think that he was involved in other felonies, like other crimes against the body, like murders and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, I do.
You do? So you think there's other bodies somewhere?
I absolutely do. I don't have... I have a gut instinct. My gut is telling me yes. I have some reasons. I have some reasons to believe this. Is like the crime scene itself is they don't leave behind any evidence in the crime scene. She's Sydney, and this isn't ruining it for anybody. Sydney's body is dismembered, and her organs are removed, and she's all the blood is drained from her body, and there's no evidence anywhere that they can be found.
Like the evidence of criminal sophistication too, right?
That's what thank you. That's what I'm getting to. Yeah, it seems like it was, the theory is that the murder and the dismemberment happened in this little apartment in Wilbur, and yet not a single bit of concrete evidence that Sydney was even in that apartment. The reason they think that it might have, and the reason we can think that maybe the dismemberment happened in the apartment, other than the fact that Aubrey and Bailey tell us, is that like the apartment was the overwhelming smell of bleach in the apartment. Then when the police showed up, it was just the landlord could smell it, made her sick. But yeah. So just the aftermath of the crime says something about the sophistication level. The fact that Aubrey's 52 years old when this happens, and it seems a little late in life to start a new career as a murderer. I think they tend to start younger.
Yeah, in their 20s. Like, so that there's like missing. It's the same thing with Ewerman, the guy, the Lisk killer in Long Island. Like, he was arrested in his 50s or something, but he was probably doing it for 30 years. So who knows what Aubrey, was up to.
The callousness with which Aubrey talks to me about it too. And by callous, I don't mean showboating callousness. I mean, just like you and I are talking about this now, he's able to just drop into the conversation about, what he did with Sydney's heart. And it doesn't, it's just, just normal thing to talk about. It's horrifying to talk to him sometimes.
They hurt a lot of people too, right? I mean, the consequences of this were, reverberated through those towns and Luke's family and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of victims, lots of pain. I mean, that's Aubrey's life. He's everywhere he goes. He just ruins lives.
He just was like that. Wow. I've
Mhm.
got a couple questions from
Sure.
the chat. Do you have time?
Yeah,
Daddy
absolutely.
Stab says, "Did Aubrey ever play Vampire the Masquerade?" That's what I mentioned earlier. It's been a popular game since the '90s. Yeah.
That's a great question. I doubt it. Because he spent like I say, he spent his formative years in prison with his what he had a friend supposedly went by the name Miss Anne, and he and Miss Anne would get up to all sorts of like hijinks together and stabbing people and fighting and stuff like that. I just don't see him ever playing games, and there were no games ever mentioned in it with him. And
Stuff. That ties to the other vampire cult. It was Roderick Farrell from Murray,
yes, right,
Kentucky.
yeah,
So they played this game, The Masquerade,
yeah.
and they kind of took it seriously, is my understanding. Does Chet know Frank Porlato? He kind of exposed the whole Raniere case. Do you know Frank?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know Frank. Yeah, our paths have crossed quite a bit back when I was reporting on Nexium back in 2006. I ran into Frank. I think maybe Frank was. I don't remember. I think maybe he was working with Nexium at the time. I forget. But I know Frank. I've known Frank for a long, long time.
I interviewed Frank, guys. You can go through my archives. I interviewed him right around the time that the whole Nexium story kind of took off. Lizzie asked, Chet, was he influencing the cult to participate in other brutalities?
Other than the murder, they liked, so Bailey. It was him and Bailey who were mostly the abusers, or they were the abusers in this little cult of theirs, right? There are some couple really awful stories about what Bailey did to a couple of young women. Aubrey, of course, would do things like strangle them and beat them, spank them, throw them around. But they were encouraged during sex to fantasize about torture, like cutting off fingers and toes and like burning people. And it was really this sort of like sexual play was where they really explored brutality and things.
Both ways, too. Aubrey was a masochist, in my opinion. So BDSM is probably the right term. Well, Saffron, would you say he's a sadist lacking empathy and only gets pleasure from inflicting pain? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would say so. Yeah, he definitely doesn't seem to have any empathy, and he did enjoy this. So yeah, I would say that's fair. But he's also, as you pointed out, a masochist, right? He, as people will see in the book, he was really into pegging. So.
Did he use drugs to control people, such as LSD? Are you familiar with like his drug application?
No, and Aubrey's a teetotaler, so yeah. I think maybe back in the day he drank, but yeah, he's a teetotaler. Bailey liked to do coke and get high, and all the young women, well, not all of them, but Bailey liked to get high, and she was always stoned, always smoking weed constantly. She'd wake up and she'd get high and she'd stay high the rest of the day. And and then there was coke involved, but I don't think there was coke in Nebraska. I think that was when they're on the road, they would pick up some coke.
But it wasn't like the coercion, the use of drugs to control, manipulate people. He didn't seem to need that, huh?
No, he picked his targets well, and I think that's another thing that is a little sometimes confusing for people is that you don't go up to 6 women and 4 of them fall under your thrall when you're a cult leader, right? You go up to 60 or 600 women and 4 of them fall under your thrall, right? Like it's a numbers game. So
how did he end up in a wheelchair? When I was looking at the videos of him, he was always in a wheelchair. Is he
Yeah.
just in bad shape or what?
I mean, this is what I'm sorry to laugh about that because maybe he does need a wheelchair, but this is again Aubrey, right? Who knows? Who knows if he needs that wheelchair? Who knows if he doesn't? He, according as far as I know, he's had a stroke, a few heart attacks. But I obviously I can't confirm any of that, right? This is all just coming from him. But he didn't need a wheelchair before he was arrested. He didn't need a wheelchair while he was on the run. It was just after he got arrested, and maybe the stress really did give him a heart attack or a stroke, or maybe just age or the right time or whatever. But I wouldn't put it past Aubrey just to request a wheelchair to be kind of like difficult.
Right, just to continue his scams, his grifts and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And it's the story's ongoing. I think they had we were talking in the pre-show about. I think he was running scams from prison too, or finding more women to manipulate. Right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. It's actually it's kind of funny. When I very first started looking into this, I reached out to Aubrey. I wrote him a letter. And I got contacted by this woman named Samantha, and she presented herself as a as a writer or his I felt like I was talking to his publicist or something. It was really a weird conversation, and it came out through this conversation. I don't remember if it was with her or with Aubrey because he was texting me at the same time. You can text from prison on the Getting Out app, and so I don't remember exactly where this came from, but Aubrey told me he would give me everything for this book if I gave him 50% of the royalties, right? And I had to work with this woman Samantha, and give her 50% of the royalties. And I told him, no, of course not. That's insane. I'm not giving you anything. And so he comes back and he's like, well, how about 30% of the royalties? And I'm like, no, Aubrey, you're not getting it. I'm not going to deal with you if you're going to be like this. And so, but at some point during these conversations, I told Samantha, I was like, Samantha, you should probably watch it. You should watch yourself because I don't know what you're doing here, but you might get into some legal trouble at some point if you're doing this type of stuff with Aubrey, right? This feels very sketchy. And 3 years later, 4 years later, I don't remember how long, she gets arrested. They were they were running a con on, I think she was a nurse in the prison, and Aubrey wanted to draw down this nurse's retirement fund, and I forget tens of thousands of dollars they got out of this woman. So I don't know if Samantha was ever charged or convicted, but she was involved in that scam.
Right. Wow. So he just could not. The tiger doesn't change its stripes or whatever, and he's on death row too, right?
Yeah, he was on death row at that time. I got a text once. While I was reporting this story, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize, and it said, "I have those pictures for you," or "I have some pictures for you." And I was like, "Well, I'm not answering that. That's crazy to answer a text from a number I don't know." And a few months later, Aubrey's like, "Hey, why didn't you answer my text?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I texted you that I had some pictures for you." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you could text from death row." But so yeah, he was like just regular text message, not through the app, not through the Getting Out app. So yeah, he's always running a con.
It's just an incredible story of and this guy, like you said, he operated for 50 years, so God only knows. They get more and more sophisticated, get better at it, fake names, all that stuff.
Yeah,
really great book, really interesting, and thanks for the discussion. Is there anything you'd like to add or anything I missed before we wrap it up?
No, this has been great. I've had a lot of fun. Thanks.
Let's see. There's somebody says, Favorite Uncle, there's an LA vampire cult still operating today called the Sabretooth Clan. Yeah, it's dead. LA vampire cult, maybe that's the same one, Lizzie. Aubrey will connect on death row. Maybe Thanks for listening, everybody. That's 105. This is the full title is The Vampire's Cult, The Untold Story of Obsession, Control, and a Shocking Small Town Murder. It's Chet Hardin. And where's the book available right now?
Oh, you can get it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, anywhere you like to buy books.
And your link on your website is to bookshop.org.
Correct.
And libro.fm, so maybe people could get off of the gargantuan Amazon and buy it somewhere else than there.
Yes, that's what I recommend.
Yeah. And then again, your website is chethardin.com, right? Yeah. And you can watch you said those videos, Facebook videos of those two are on there. Is that right?
Yes, I have it on my website, and you can find it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And then your other earlier book was the Mind of Keith Raniere too, right? So that's the other one. Mm-hmm. People want to
program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the program, the Inside the Mind of Keith Raniere and the Rise and Fall of NXIVM, which it's another really fascinating story. But great book, and thanks so much for your time and congratulations.
Thanks, William.
It's Chet Hardin. Thanks so much. Okay, I'll stop the stream right now.